All right. Hello, everyone. Fair warning, I did not realize I have a meeting today in about 30 minutes, so it's going to be a short class. If I had realized that, I would have just recorded this ahead of time so we'd have the full hour and a half. So I do apologize for that, but something is better than nothing. So let's just dive right into it. I went ahead and had everything pulled up. We don't need that. We need this. All right, so going back to, I think I'm going to do two more problems from that from the week 4, chapter 2 kind of subjects. And we had done up to like 37 or 38 earlier. I skipped a few, but 45 and 46 in particular I want to do because they're really good examples and they parallel all that CPI stuff we were just talking about in the regular course, assuming you have me and you watch the course. Watch the class, that is to say. Word. Do. Give myself some space. Boom. Boom. Is that all of it? 1, 2, 3 columns. Yep, we're good. Okay. No, that wasn't right, but here we go. Just gonna do that. Okay. Suppose you need $27,000 to maintain a particular standard of living in 1976. How much would you have needed in 1997 to maintain the same standard of living? Assume that all prices have risen at the same rates as the CPI. So this is the thing that I quite honestly probably overemphasized and will continue to overemphasize, but not all things in price scale the same. Sometimes bacon goes up 50% all of a sudden, and it's not because of inflation, it's just because there's a shortage in pork bellies or a rise in demand or something like that. Sometimes a price will fall 50% over time because of government subsidies or lack of demand, like milk, non-organic. I always like to say that. I don't speak for the organic side of things. I buy some organic things, but not milk. Doesn't matter, does it? No. All right, so point of the problem. We needed $27,000 to maintain a particular lifestyle in 1976. How much would you have needed in 1997? So this is, 21 years going by, so something that might be a little more relative to us is if we were comparing 1999 to 2020, we would not have a way of comparing 2020 to anything in the future because we don't know how inflation is going to happen exactly. We like to assume it's going to be 2% every year, but nothing guarantees that. The Fed fights for it, but nothing guarantees that. We see deflation some years. It's rare, but it can happen. So anyways, we can never talk about the future with this unless somebody just throws an assumed number at you. And we all know what happens when you assume. Don't answer that question. It wasn't actually a question, it was just a statement. Anyways, you needed $27,000 to maintain a lifestyle. So that means you were buying a particular level of quality of food, you were going out and having fun this much, maybe you're spending $100 on fun every month, maybe you're spending $500 on, in 1976, that might be a little high, let's say like $300 or $400, $500, somewhere in that ballpark, on your mortgage, let's say $300. And then you might have had student debt. Not as many people went to school for college at that time, but there was still enough to say you could have had school debt, blah, 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 blah. You needed $27,000. Now, if you want to maintain that exact same lifestyle, never improve, never really go through the whole mo money, mo problems phase where you're just flatlining. Now, you would technically be making more money each year because of inflation, but it wouldn't be a significant amount more, which means you can't just start all of a sudden go spend an extra $1,000 on boat parts or something weird like that. All right, so this table is not set up as a proportion table. It's just labels. All of these years are labels, the CPIs are values, but we'll need to extract the two values for the years they ask about. So what did they ask about? They asked about 1976 and 1997. So we need to go to that table and extract those CPIs. So 1976, pay attention, is 56.9. 1997 is 160.5. I didn't do a very good circle on that one, did I? There we go. That's it. That's all we need from the table. We're not using the year values at all. Remember, years are just apple and orange, and banana and kiwi and mango and whatever other fruits you can come up with. Those years are not going anywhere in math. They are labels. Do not ever put the year in a proportion equation for stuff like this. So I just need those two CPIs. So I'm going to make my own table. Do you have to? No. Might it help you? Sure. So you can do CPI in one column. That's the second time I've done that, isn't it? And I'm still on annotate. Undo. I'm actually going to leave all the scribbling on the screen for now. There we go. All right, so in one column I'll do CPI, and I did it again. Let's do it a third time in a row. How about that? No, I'm kidding. And then another column for the year. Does the year column have to go to the right of CPI? No, I could swap these. It doesn't matter. You just have to keep the scenarios next to each other or on top of each other. I could also do year this way and CPI this way. Wow, I really want that to be an E, don't I? I could do it this way instead. So this would be a completely different looking table. So for the year, I could go 1976 first, because it came first, and then I can do 1997 second. I can swap them as long as I have the appropriate CPIs next to them. Except we're not actually supposed to be talking about the years, right? We're supposed to be talking about the cost in the year. So let's put the year label on the left. I'm doing, shoot. See, I'm setting these up not in the best order necessarily the first time around, because this is how it happens when you, the student, do things. You go, wait a minute. If I put the years here, 1976 and 1997, and then I put the CPIs up here of 56.9 and 160.5, first of all, if you think this is your box, I already told you you're not supposed to be using years at all in your proportion solving, so that's a bad idea. Second of all, there's no unknown value in any of this, so this isn't even a proportion where we could solve things. Finally, it's not actually a proportion. So yes, we did want to have the year labeled first. Let's just erase everything, darn it. Don't worry, we're going to do everything right, correct now. So we'll have a label for the years, just so everything is well organized. So 1976, 1997. And then we can have the CPI, and the thing that we're actually looking for is the amount of money we need to live. So we can just say $sign if you want to keep it short and sweet, or you can say lifestyle minimum dollar amounts. It's however you want to do it. So CPI. I did that one on purpose. No, I didn't. I'm lying that time. And then let's just put dollar. So in 1976, that CPI was 56.9. In 1997, it was 160.5. The dollar amount we needed in 1976 to live was $27,000. And we don't know how much we need to live in 1997. This is a much better table setup. Now, I didn't actually have to label the years at all. I could just leave this a little more vague and say, okay, for one particular year, its CPI was this much and we needed this much. And then another year, the CPI was this much and we'll need, well, an unknown amount. Again, while the year column technically doesn't need to be there, it is helpful because it's a reminder of where these values came from, especially when you look at your notes a month or two later if you're a good student like you should when you're studying. And if you don't see those columns, you're going to go, where did it come from? So if you imagine yourself drawing a box, this is literally the only box you can even draw. And you've got 3 numbers in a variable. Remember, no boxes around years. Years are apples and oranges. So that's the box we draw. We're going to do 56.9 over 160.5 equals the 27,000 over the x. We'll cross multiply to get 56.9 times x is equal to 27,000 times 160.5. Definitely going to want a calculator for that. Just move this so we can see what I'm typing in. 27000 times 160.5. And we see that we get 433. How many threes did I say? I think I said 2. Let me start over. 4333500. That's 4,333,500. 4,333,500. And that's equal to the 56.9x. So we're going to divide both sides by 56.9. So we just divide by 56.9. And what we get is $76,159. And we're talking money, so we should probably round to the nearest penny. We'll confirm. What do they say? Well, actually, they say to round to the nearest dollar, but that would have been the default. With money, you default to rounding to the nearest penny unless they tell you otherwise. So rounding to the nearest dollar, that's 92 cents or 93 cents, which rounds up to the nearest dollar. 59 to go to 60. So 76160. So x, when rounded, that's rounding, is about 76160. The x was in a spot talking about money, so that is a dollar amount. So that means that someone earning $27,000 in 1976 and completely happy with their lifestyle could have the exact same lifestyle in 1997 off of $76,000. And you ask, does it make sense? Well, I'd say it makes sense in regards to the number went up. Over time, you need more money because of inflation. I also think it makes sense because the CPI numbers should scale in the same way that your dollar amount should scale. So going from about 50 to about 150, just rounding out to cleaner numbers, the CPI has tripled in this time frame. And our salary has gone from about 25,000 to about 75,000, which is tripled. So remember, we say as one thing doubles, the other thing doubles, or you could say as one thing triples, the other triples, as one quintuples, the other quintuples, as one multiplies by 10, the other should multiply by 10. That idea is consistent with proportions. And I mean, in 1997, that sounds like a lot of money. In 1997, it's still a lot of money in 2020, in my opinion, but I'm a teacher, so you know, nobody throws money at us left and right. So what that means is back in 1976, $27,000 was a solid amount of money. It doesn't sound like a lot because we're used to thinking in 2020 dollars. Every year that goes by, we see the change so slowly and subtly that most of us don't really feel it. And by the time 30 or 40 years pass, you're like, oh man, remember when we could get this for a nickel? That was a long time ago, wasn't it? That's a quarter now, or it's $1 now, or whatever. Now imagine if we turn this into 2020, which I don't have the CPI value available, but I'm going to guess that it's probably about $100,000. Now, I have mentioned in my regular Math 154 class that the inflation rate in the 70s and 80s was ridiculously high because of going off of the gold standard. That's not something I'm going to test you off of. It's just a cool fun fact. So rates for everything were high. Inflation rates were high. Loans like mortgages were high. I can't actually speak for student debt. I've never looked at those, but I'd assumed that those rates were high. I mean, all rates were high. I've never looked at student loans in the past like 1995, but that doesn't mean anything. All right, so we got 76160. Let's make sure it's right. 76160. And we got it right, thankfully. So let's try out another one. Let's clear the screen though. There we go. Okay. So very similar problem. And this says back in 1982, we were living off of 50 grand because we wanted to have nice things. 50 grand in 1982, we probably have a better understanding. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's almost twice this last example. And it's only 6 years that have gone by, but it was 6 years of high inflation. So maybe that $27,000 is already inflated to 50 grand. That's not the point of the problem though. We're comparing 1982 to 2005. Now again, I did the year CPI in dollars as columns. I could have done them as rows instead. It does not matter. So I'm going to do the second example that way. I'm thinking if I can, come on, scroll out, there we go. So I just want to leave the original one, the first one up there, so you can see what I mean by changing it around. So instead of going year CPI dollar amount, I'm going to do the year. Let's get with the black color. I also prefer blue. Just didn't change that back. Out of all the things Word saves, it saves pen colors and practically nothing else. Whatever. All right, so we'll go. Still want it black. Year, CPI, and dollar amount. So for the first year, we're going to have is 1982, and then its CPI based on the table is 96.5. How much money did we live off of then? It was 50 grand. They told us that. I didn't pull that out of thin air. Now we'll need another column for the next year, which we said was 2005. Which the table says 2005 has a CPI of 195.3. And then the dollar amount, we don't know. We said, how much do we need to make to keep the same lifestyle? Now, you can get really philosophical with this and say, well, lifestyles really drastically changed in the late 20th century with the advent of computers, and then eventually even more with the advent of smartphones. So, you know, can you even really say you have the same lifestyle in, say, 1960 versus 2020? No, but what we mean is you're spending a certain amount on this, a certain amount on that, a certain amount of this on a certain amount on that. So if you're calling your technology necessities, then your necessities column in your budget would be saying the same amount. All right, so again, one problem, I set it up this way as a table. The next problem, I did it this way. It's just a matter of making sure that this CPI goes with this year and this CPI goes with that year. I can't swap those. Everything will be fine once we set up our proportion. All right, so let me undo that. Sorry, I had a private message I had to answer real quick. All right, so proportions, right? Just draw in a box. Well, let me draw a box right here. Can I do it this way and then use this number, this number, this number, and this unknown? Ooh, that's 3 numbers in the corners and an unknown. And it's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because I chose to use years, and I can't use years. They're labels. So actually, very similar to the last one, there's only one box you can even draw, and it's that one right there. So you'd go 96.5 over 50,000. Equals 195.3 over x. Now, before I solve for x, I want to kind of get a guesstimate of what I think the answer is going to be. The CPI went from about 100 to about 200. I'm just trying to get nice, round, pretty numbers when I'm rounding. I didn't round to the nearest tens or hundreds for any particular reason, except to get pretty numbers. 96 is close to 100. 195 is close to 200. 100 versus 200, that's doubling. So I'm going to anticipate that this x is somewhere in the ballpark of twice 50,000, which means it should be in the ballpark of 100,000. Ballpark. If it's 5 or 10,000 off, that's not a big deal. I'm just getting a guess. Cross multiply. 96.5 times x is equal to 195.3 times 50,000. We're going to do that product on our calculator. No one's going to do that in their head except maybe me. 195.3. Let's double check our numbers. That looks good. Times 50,000. Correct number of zeros. All good. 9,765,000. And that's it. 9,765,000. Commas to make it easier. Then we're going to just divide both sides by the 96.5. You have got to get comfortable with that basic algebra. I will say this again, you have got to go and practice that 100 times if you're still struggling with knowing which thing to divide by, or multiply, add, subtract, whichever it might be the case. All right, so divide by 96.5, and we get 101,000 $191. It would be 71 cents rounded to the nearest penny, but because we're rounding the nearest dollar, it's $101,192. 101, 192. X equals 101, 192. That's bucks, buccarinos. We got it right. So that's a good sign. These two problems right here are something you will see several times in the regular Math 154 homework. And if you have me, which all but one of you do, or I can't speak for the room, but just across the whole class, this is the type of question that I definitely throw on the test. I love these CPI problems. Historically, I've put 2 on a test before. Not every single time, but quite often. So I would highly anticipate seeing a type of problem like this, which is why I specifically wanted to do it. Because a lot of students will see, oh, we got CPIs and the numbers, so just start trying to make boxes out of these, but well, wait, where's the unknown? And then this actually has no dollar amounts. How do I put the 50,000 in here? I mean, where do I go? Do I just cross out CPI and write 50,000? That wouldn't make any sense. So you have to actually make your own table. And I don't want to say have to. If you like tables, that's what you would have to do. Alternatively, what you could have done is just use your words. You can go ahead and write fraction equal fraction, and then to the side use your words, and you go CPI over dollar amount, or dollar over CPI. Then one of these fractions would be the 1982 year. The other fraction would be the 2005 year. So the left one, I'll do the 82, which the CPI was 96.5, and then over its dollar amount, which was the 50,000, and then equals the CPI from 2005 was the 195.3, and then over, we don't know, X. That's pretty much the exact same proportion actually it is literally the same proportion that we made. It doesn't have to look exactly the same at this point, but after you cross multiply, you'd be good. All right, so with the last, let's say 10 minutes I've got, I'll be a couple minutes late to my meeting. Let's go back to assignments. Let's do the time management stuff, a couple of them. Jennifer used Excel to create a time log for her first week of school. After the first day, she realized that she would need to modify the rest of her week. Boy, that is definitely something that's going to happen if you make yourself a schedule, especially if it's the first or second or third time you ever made a schedule, or if you have kids or manage a lot of family members or 3 jobs, anything like that. We talked about last class in here how, yeah, we tend to have to make modifications to our schedule. In fact, one of the questions was kind of assuming that, and I answered one wrong, as we talked about. But I also talked about how, well, that could be an assumption, but I don't know if they're making it, and then it turned out they were. All right, so she realizes she needs to modify her schedule. Analyze Jennifer's time log for Monday. Click to view the time log. So we click the I button, and you can push this to the side if you like, so that you can read everything all at once. Why does Jennifer need to adjust her time log? She needs more study and review time. She needs more sleep and social time. She forgot to include time for travel and meals. She forgot to include time for classes and homework. So let's see what we got here. Monday, from 8 to 11, we have classes. That was the planned time. The actual time was 8 to 11. Notice that this time log has got a planned time and an actual. So not only do you just plan ahead of time what you think it's going to look like, you go back and record, well, you know, I thought 11 to 12 was going to be read ahead for biology, but man, my stomach was growling. I got to get some lunch. I mean, some people can have a, quote, working lunch and manage to get some studying time done. Not everyone can do that, though, so it's another case of you need to know yourself. All right, so then we said from 1 to 4 we got classes, which ended up being true. I mean, that should be the case generally. If your classes are scheduled, they're scheduled unless your teacher cancels class. 4 to 9, homework and study. So let's see, from 4 to 5, we got walk home. Ooh, so apparently our school is an hour away walking distance, or maybe 50 minutes, and we're rounding, something like that. So we didn't seem to plan for that. Then from 5 to 6, homework. Okay, well, that's one of the 5 hours they checked off. Then from 6 to 7, dinner. Well, that's not homework. but you got to eat. Then from 8 to 11, homework. We still got 4 hours of homework in, but not the 5 we planned for. And then from 11 to 7, it says sleep, whereas before we said 10 to 7 sleep. Now, I know everyone, every single one of you, at least most of your life probably has done this. Oh, I'm going to go to bed at 10. In reality, you make it there 11, 11:30. I'm going to go to bed by midnight, and you're up on your computer or your cell phone until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It's just life. We're people. That's how we are. You know, the sleep schedule is probably the toughest one to force yourself into, but good sleep is necessary. And you have 9 hours of sleep. A lot of people say, well, you only need 8, but maybe it takes you an hour to fall asleep. Or maybe there was just some padding in there, which, that padding ended up being elsewhere. Blah, blah, blah. I'm ranting. Okay. So why does Jennifer need to adjust her time log? She needs more study and review time. She needs more sleep and social time. Well, it looks like she got enough sleep, 8 hours, so that one seems to be out. There wasn't anything about socializing in here, and it's a Monday. Maybe we're just not really socializing on Monday, except for in between classes and talking, things like that. She forgot to include time for travel and meals. Well, in the actual schedule, we definitely see lunch wasn't planned, the walk home wasn't planned, dinner wasn't planned, so C seems like the answer. She forgot to include time for classes and homework. She definitely did not do that. So it is absolutely C. If you have to ride the bus to school, well, we're not talking currently right now for most of us. If you had to ride the bus an hour and a half to school, you need to plan for that. And buses can take a long time. It might be a 30-minute drive for someone and an hour and a half bus ride for someone else. Been there, done that. If you need your 30-minute meals, plan for your 30-minute meals. If you need an hour, plan for an hour. If you're someone who likes to really get in the kitchen and whip up a good meal and it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, plan for that time. Make yourself your schedule. All right, Lex's boss asks Lex to dinner to discuss a promotion. Lex turns him down because he needs to complete his history reading. Lex begins reading his history homework after class at 3 p.m. He reads while texting his friends for 2 hours. Well, already there, you're probably not absorbing, but okay. Then his roommate invites him to dinner. Lex returns to his room at 7 p.m. and checks his email and Facebook messages. He reads his homework again, starting at 9 p.m., but falls asleep at 10. The next morning, Lex wakes up and complains to his roommate because he missed dinner with his boss and still did not complete his reading. Why does this happen? Lex planned to read, but instead spent time on other activities. Lex planned to read, but forgot to leave time for other important activities. Lex tried to plan well, but his assignment took longer than expected, or Lex tried his best to study, but did not understand the information. I don't see anything up here about not understanding it, so D seems out. His assignment took longer than he expected. Well, I mean, he spent from 3 to 5 studying, but also texting at the same time. Then he reads his homework again starting at 9, but falls asleep at 10. So, I mean, 3 hours, that's not a ton. That doesn't sound like it took longer than expected. So it's probably A or B. Lex planned to read, but instead spent his time on other activities. That seems to be in there. Lex planned to read, but forgot to leave time for other important activities. Now, you might say he forgot to leave time for other activities, but the word important is in there. Checking email, Facebook messages, texting, I wouldn't document them under important unless it's your work email, student email, and you've got this big, back and forth going on or something. I don't know. So my vote's A. We get it right. Those cell phones, they are a giant distraction. They are a giant distraction. We try and text someone and do something else, and our brain's half occupied, and we might think we're learning what we're reading, and then an hour later we come back to try and think about it, and we're like, oh, I don't remember anything. So maybe have an hour or two where you put your cell phone on silent and hide it or turn it off, I don't know. But distractions are very easy. Some people are good with background noise. Some people aren't. Some people like music while they're studying. Some people watch TV while they're studying at a mild volume. Some people need absolute silence. It depends on your personality and how you work, but you've got to learn. I know this is a million times I said this. You've got to learn how you operate so that you can operate properly. Mark wants to know how many points his research paper will be worth and which section of his syllabus will Mark find this information. This is kind of a weak question. That's not that. What is the first thing a student should do when receiving a syllabus? Now, this is a good question. Begin your first reading assignment, copy your instructor's email address, put all test and project dates on your calendar, find a logical place in your folder to keep it. I tell you what, there's 3 of these 4 that I say are pretty good. Begin your first reading assignment. Well, we're talking like the second you're handed your syllabus. Copy your instructor's email address. I would think that is not that big of an issue, that you wouldn't have to do that because you literally have it printed in front of you. And yet every semester I have at least 4 or 5 students that ask me for my email address, even though I've pointed out it's in their syllabus and they have the syllabus. So in reality, B is pretty important, but it's probably not the answer they want. C, put all tests and project dates on your calendar. Now that sounds pretty important. Going ahead and putting things in your calendar. If you have a class where your teacher says, I know I'm going to hit the schedule, I'd say only about half of teachers really have a schedule they're set to. I know a lot of my colleagues don't. They're kind of like me where it's like, all right, I know we might spend an extra week or maybe one less class working on this stuff for a long time. So the midterm date's open-ended, but it'll be, you know, week 9, week 10. Find a logical place in your folder to keep it. I mean, the front folder sounds good. I feel like D is important. It is important, but they probably want the answer to be C, and they do, because this section is time management. How often should a college student make a to-do list? Hourly, monthly, weekly, or daily? So there's 2 answers in my head for this one, and it depends on how in-depth we're going to go with the to-do list. I'm a big fan of the daily to-do list, so my gut is to go with daily, but I also have talked about how we can take a whole week's worth of planning and section it out. Do 1 hour here, 1 hour on Tuesday. I said not here. 1 hour on Monday, then 1 hour on Tuesday, then 1 hour on Wednesday, 1 hour on Thursday, 1 hour on Friday. But a to-do list, I just feel like that's probably going to creep up every day for what they want, and that's exactly what they wanted. Hourly is way too frequently. Monthly is not enough because you're never going to be able to track an entire month's worth of stuff all at once. Things are going to pop up. Weekly, I think you can get general schedules made out, but daily, a lot of new things pop up every day, so that's where we'd want to be there. Which planning tool will contain this information? Test dates, instructor names, learning objectives, and assignment due dates. Again, basing off of the idea that your teacher gives you all that stuff in the syllabus, which not all teachers do. They're thinking the course syllabus. Again, test dates, with me, at least in particular, I don't have the test. I have one of the test dates in there. I have the final exam. That's written in stone for sure, of course. But the midterm, I just said week 10. Read Heidi's syllabus schedule and answer the questions that follow. September 7th, read text chapter 1, pages 3 through 19, and watch part 1 of From the Other Side. September 14th, read chapter 2, watch part 2. September 21st, read chapter 3, then do a reflective paper for chapters 1 and 2. They're due during that phase, or that date. September 28th, read text chapter 4. Which date is most important for Heidi to mark on her calendar? Do you think she needs to mark to watch half of a video or another half of a video or read the chapters? Reading each of these chapters, I mean, you should always be working on a chapter every week. So, all right, well, last week I read chapter 2, so this week I'm reading chapter 3. Last week I read chapter 5, this week I'm reading chapter 6, that kind of idea. But reflective paper for chapters 1 and 2 due, that one sounds pretty important. So that's the one I would be marking. And again, while I don't have all this stuff on a syllabus because it's so freaking much, you got my math lab dates, your Excel dates, your quizzes, discussion boards. So I can't do them at the beginning of the semester, but I do them every day of class, and I expect that everyone's writing those down. And then some of you aren't, and then you email me and ask me when things are due. Maybe not any of y'all in particular, but students in general. All right, I'm gonna go for 3 more minutes and then I got a bolt. Read Tim's to-do list. To-do for Monday, October 3rd. So to-do list, 1 day. First, preliminary research for chemistry paper is due Friday. So it's Monday and that's due Friday. Well, he's got 4 days. Preliminary, so that's the early on. 4 days, that's pretty good. Maybe an hour every day on that. I don't know. Finish English paper that's due tomorrow. So that seems to have more priority, which, by the way, it's which work should be Tim's first priority. So these numbers are not prioritized. It's just a list currently of things to do. Topic for psychology paper is due Friday. So another thing based on Friday, that's further away. And then read chapter 4 for Wednesday's biology class. So I'm actually going to prioritize these in my opinion. 2 of them you could flip-flop, but the paper that's due tomorrow, that's priority 1. So priority 1 is the English paper. Priority number 2, I would say, we got to read chapter 4 for Wednesday's biology class. So I'm just going to write bio. And then priority 3 and priority 4, again, these 2 would be interchangeable. Preliminary research paper for chemistry due, and then a topic for psychology paper due. Now, topic sounds really easy to come up with. I mean, I don't want to say easy. That could actually be the most difficult part to someone else. That could be the most difficult part. But a topic, I feel like you might need to put away 1 to 2 hours just to say, all right, what topic do I want to do? Kind of do some extremely light research on that. So I'd put that at the bottom. Again, personal opinion. And then the chemistry paper, the preliminary thing, I would put that as priority 3. And something as simple as this, just not just making a list, also prioritizing them can help you get things done. So that way, all right, I'm working on my English paper. Man, I've been doing this for 4 hours. I'm getting sick of it. All right, well, let me take a break. First of all, 5 to 10 minute break every hour. For your brain's sanity. It's like a muscle. You can't just overuse it and expect it not to crash. But, after a couple hours of English, maybe then you say, all right, well, let me work on something else. Let me switch to the bio thing for a while. Let me start studying let me start reading a little of this bio, chapter 4. That would be the idea. All right. So we said the English paper was highest priority, and they agree. Let me annotate, clear the screen. There we go. Go away. Nope. Here we go. Read the following list of activities from your syllabus and then select the answer choice that you would most likely mark on your monthly planning calendar. Complete chapter 3 reading for class discussion. Continue class discussion of chapter 3, review information from chapter 3 or chapter 3 test. I think you all know it's the 4th selection. So I'm going to pick the 4th one really quickly. Notice I did that really quickly and I did this intentionally. It's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because we didn't pay attention and the 4th option up here was not the 4th option down here. So that was just a not paying attention and rushing issue. Cool. And simple. Suppose that you were planning your schedule using an Excel calendar for the upcoming week in which you had 2 exams. So in the upcoming week, you have 2 exams. That's a big deal. Which category would you probably dedicate the most time to? Studying, class, social networking, or downtime? I'm saying it's not downtime if you got 2 tests come up. I'm saying it's not social networking if you got 2 tests coming up. Class, you're in college. Class time is not even half of your studying, because it's 1 hour in class, 2 hours out of class for a total of 3 hours per credit hour. So 3 credits, 3 hours in, 6 out, total of 9. So you're only spending 3 hours in class that week, which means under normal conditions you're spending 6 hours studying, but if it's a study week, or a test week and you haven't prepped, you might need more than 6 hours because you didn't put in the 6 hours last week and the week before and the week before. So studying. I also say that there should be a fifth answer for this one, and it should be sleep. Sleep would be the answer if it was an option, because sleep is critical to your brain operating properly. All right, there's one more in here, and it's a later one. Let me start at 30. That is actually a good one. I'll do it real quick. They'll wait for me in the meeting. Why should Allison log her time during the week? To make her feel badly about how she spent her time. That's the goal here. We want to make people feel bad, right? No, exaggerating. To track how she actually spent her time against how she planned to. I feel like we already confirmed this in a previous one, but let's see. To help prove to her parents that she has been studying. Well, that might be you, but probably not the answer. To remind her to start making her plan for the next week. I think that's also a good idea as well, that while you're continuing to maintain your plan, that it's reminding you that you need to keep up with this next week. And maybe you'll get a little better at guessing, where things are missing. But yeah, it's definitely B. All right, that's not the one I wanted though. Nope. Nope. Here we go. Why is being flexible an important part of being a good planner? So not just going absolute to the rigid schedule. And I know we've all seen some episode of a random sitcom out there where you've got character A, we're going to Disney World or something, and we've got to be, on this ride at 10:15, and then in this store at 10:30, that kind of idea. And then the family members B, C, and D are all mad because they want to go do their own thing. It's okay to have a schedule, but you've got to have some flexibility because other people exist, other things happen in your life, blah, blah, blah. So why is being flexible important? Even if you plan well, you may need to deal with unexpected things. Ooh, that sounds good. Once you plan out your schedule, you should not change it. I think I just described a fun way involving that. Also, poor Disney employees, if anyone heard about that, geez. Flexibility helps you avoid procrastination and avoid time traps. You definitely want to avoid procrastination and time traps, but I don't think it's flexibility that's helping that. If you are flexible, you will be able to spend more time watching TV. I mean, I know some people that are just only flexible and make no schedule, and they definitely get some TV watching in, but I don't know if they're going to get everything else done. So even if you plan well, you may need to deal with unexpected things. There we go. I keep lying. One more. Even Evan has missed versus odd Evan. Sorry, math jokes. Evan has missed a few of his 8 a.m. classes this term. Shame on Evan. He doesn't understand why he doesn't wake up on time. He gets plenty of sleep each night and sets his 2 alarms. What should Evan do next term to avoid missing his classes because he oversleeps? Use a better alarm clock. Well, he had 2, so hopefully at least one of them was a good alarm clock. Have a friend call him at 7:15 a.m. on weekdays. I mean, that's nice, but then you're putting your responsibilities on someone else. It's nice to be independent, or mostly independent. Go to bed earlier. Well, it's already said he got plenty of sleep. Avoid early morning classes. Now, this right here is the true college answer. And yes, someone said it in the chat, and they are correct. Avoid early morning classes. You, in general, have options for your classes. So if you need to take a math 154, there's usually an 8 a.m. and then maybe an 11 a.m. and then a night class from like 7 to 10, all done in once. Maybe you're working from 9 to 5 and got to come home and feed the kids. So you need to build your college schedule around this. Now, when you get to the workforce, you might not be able to do that. It depends on your career. So some people will choose careers that have, schedules that are in line with them. Like some people are just night owls, so they go get the third shift at the shipyard or something like that. Or they wake up at 4 a.m. every day, so they go become a postman or a baker or something like that, or postwoman. Not to, yeah, you know what I mean. All right, so we'll call it there. Again, I apologize for not realizing ahead of time that I was going to have to cut you short. At least it's only 25 minutes that I'm cutting out of time. So sorry for that. You are more than welcome, obviously, to go through and do more of these on your own. I highly suggest it. Remember, you have to do at least some of them to count as attendance, since I only have 3 or 4 people coming regularly anyways for the live class. So keep working hard. Please, please, please remember you can always email me with any questions you have, whether it's material or something else related to the class, at least. Don't ask me for stock advice every email, you know what I mean. All right, so have a good one. Please remember, if you're in my 154, all those due dates we talked about, I do have the discussion board and the quiz up, so those are ready for you. And yeah, have a good day, have a good weekend. We'll see you Tuesday.